In this video, I'm going to tell you about 6 new miniatures skirmish games that I think have some real potential. This topic idea came from a viewer, and sadly, I don't remember the username, unfortunately, I apologize. But they mentioned it during my Twitch stream this past Monday night. I stream on Twitch and paint miniatures and things like that, Monday nights and Friday mornings. Link in the description down below if you want to give a follow and check it out. And anyway, this viewer suggested that I make a video about new skirmish games with potential, quote unquote. At least the idea stuck with me, even if the username seemed not to. Again, I apologize. And you know, I love me some skirmish games, so here we go. Some of these won't be necessarily brand new, but instead, kinda new. I'm going to start with skirmish games I've actually played, or at least, actually read the rules, and then I'll move into some games that I haven't had access to yet, or maybe haven't, even been released yet towards the end of the video. If you're pretty new here, and you don't know what a skirmish game is, skirmish games are a subset of tabletop miniatures war games that generally use fewer models per side. Army games, which are kind of the opposite of skirmish games, they generally can have like anywhere from dozens to maybe even more than 100 models per side in an army, whereas skirmish games are usually like 3 to 15 models per side or so. The first one is called Blackout, although it's spelled B-L-K-O-U-T in all caps. That makes it more sci-fi, I assume. And it is a sci-fi game made by Enemy Spotted Studios, and it takes place on like another planet called Abol. It's hard to, I don't know how you pronounce it, but it's the year like 2110, so it's a ways away from now. It's a colony world, right? The first and only human colony world, and it's kind of on the brink of war and collapse, which is, what makes a good war game very frequently. There's no magic or aliens or anything like that. It's very kind of a hard sci-fi vibe going on, and I appreciate that. It's a very tactical game, and by that I mean that understanding movement and positioning and, tactics, it's the most important thing to winning your games of Blackout. In most situations in this game, if you get shot, you're out, whether you're out of action or dead or whatever, kind of like in the real world. In other games, you can get shot and be like, well, I still have like 3 hit points left. I'm okay. And that can work fine in some rules. But this rule set is really trying to stress the ideas of like cover and situational awareness. So gunfire is very, very deadly. And the games are quite quick. Also, the rule book is tiny and cute as a button, which is probably not the response the designers were looking for, but I call them as I sees them. It's about 4 by 6 inches with a spiral binding, so it lays flat, and it's only about 44 pages. The game also comes with cards, which are like kind of plastic, like credit cards, for the unit stats, for your models, and for the special actions in the game. I bought the 2-player starter set direct off their website, which comes with the book, the cards, fancy tokens, and then, of course, the 2 forces, which is pretty much like 9 models on each side, I believe. The whole thing was $120. The models are 3D printed and highly detailed. They have a kind of real-world sort of sci-fi look to them. I think Ash from Guerrilla Miniature Games on YouTube called them Neil Blomkamp style, which refers to, movies like District 9, Elysium, Chappie. If you've seen any of those movies from Blomkamp, you know what we're talking about. Ash and I talked about a lot of different things recently when I was visiting Canada, Pachow. So, check that out for a good discussion on the state of the wargaming industry. Anyway, these models are very cool and all pre-built because they're, again, 3D printed. I'm really looking forward to painting these models up and playing some more games this summer. Depending on how many models you play your game with, the board can be like 2 foot by 2 foot, 3 foot by 3 foot, up to 4 foot by 4 foot. And I've really been loving sort of the 2 by 2 boards in games lately. I'll put a link down below in the description if you want to go and check this game out. Another cool newer skirmish game that I really enjoy, and I'm currently working on painting my second force for it right now, is Steel Rift. Steel Rift is a mech game written by the aforementioned Ash Barker from Guerrilla Miniature Games here on YouTube and published by Death Ray Designs, makers of like cool laser cut terrain, MDF and all that kind of stuff, and all kinds of other like gaming related things. Just like Blackout, it comes with 3D printed models for you to build and paint, but also like Blackout and frankly any other miniatures game, you can always use whatever miniatures you want. The mech designs for Steel Rift were certainly one of the things that really drew me to the game initially. Most of the mechs are chunky, and I'm here for it. I also love how customizable the actual figures themselves are. You can kind of pose them depending on however you want to build them and put different types of guns on them to either make them like super WYSIWYG for the way that you plan to build your list, or, maybe just, to make them look cool. Your choice, whichever. The different factions all have slightly different looks to them as well, and I really like the vibe. I really like the rules too. The main rule book is, again, really small and not too dense. The printed version is like 5.5 by 8.5 and about 36 pages. The rules are streamlined, but also, I think, unique, and the game flows pretty quickly. It's played without a hex grid, or whatever, like Battletech generally is. And the customization features on the mechs, called HEVs in the game, which stands for Humanoid Endoskeletal Vehicles. It's not too much, but it's also not too little either. The customization gives you options, but doesn't make it daunting. There's a bunch of different factions that have been released and tons of models available. But again, you can play with other models if you're interested. I've seen plenty of folks on the Death Ray Designs Discord server using Battletech miniatures to play. And there are even like these adapters that you can buy from Death Ray Designs to magnetically attach Steel Rift circle bases to the smaller kind of hex bases that are on Battletech mechs, if you'd like to do that, of course. Also, they've put out, I think at this point, 2 expansions since launch, Burning Horizons and Close Quarters. Another skirmish game that I've recently come across and like downloaded and read the rules and really have some hope for is called Trench Crusade. This is an alternate history skirmish game where the Crusades, like back from the year 1095, like never really ended. And the conflict is still going on in 1914, which we would call, World War I. There are a bunch of factions in the game, Trench Pilgrims, Heretic Legion, the Iron Sultanate, the Principality of New Antioch, and the Cult of the Black Grail, which frankly all sound really cool. The rules are written by Tuomas Pirinen. I know I mispronounced that. I apologize. But he designed and wrote Mordheim, which you've probably heard of. The art is by Michael Francina. He's from the video game industry and has worked for companies like Blizzard and EA and Fat Shark and things like that. And the art is really like dark and bloody. It's very cool stuff. Mike, and then a sculptor named James Sheriff, who is the lead designer for 28 Magazine, which you should also really check out. They did a Kickstarter for physical miniatures back in 2022. It did better than they thought it was gonna, I feel, and there's been some issues getting all the models out, but I think that they're still working on it. That said, you can download the playtest rules for free on their website. Link in the description down below, and check them out for yourself. I really enjoy the gameplay loop, right? Like kind of like what you do in a turn from beginning to end, and then you do it again. So the gameplay loop, the rules feel, and all that kind of stuff are some of the most important things to whether I enjoy a game or not. It has not that much to do with the lore or the models or the art. It's really the rules. And this system is very interesting to me. There's some stuff in it that seems quite familiar, as if you look at it and go and, I can see where they kind of pulled that from other different games and things like that. But then there's also some very unique things as well. Like the dice mod thing where you either are dicing up or dicing down, and it kind of, it's a really cool system. Take a look if you're interested. they're going to be doing another Kickstarter later on this year for the printed rulebook and for more models. I believe they're supposed to be STLs and also CO-cast plastics. They were kind of having a problem in that last Kickstarter with the CO-cast plastics, so at least they'll have STLs that you can just get and print if you want to. And hopefully that one will do better. Lastly, here's 3 quick shout-outs I want to make to some skirmish games that I'm really looking forward to finding out more about very soon. These are games that are pretty indie generally, except for like one is maybe a little bit less indie than the other two, and are either just recently out or coming pretty soon, like probably later on this year. The one that's out now is called This Quarr's War, A Clash of Rifles, and I have a copy in the mail on its way here as I film this. It's made by Zombiesmith and is now finally produced in plastic miniatures for the first time by Wargames Atlantic. The Quarr are this race of kind of bipedal anteater looking sort of, things. They've got these long noses and stuff like that. And they've had factions at war with each other forever, it seems. Also, the game has been around for actually quite a long time. Zombiesmith used to make it. It was always in metal miniatures back in the day. Now it's done in plastics from the folks at Wargames Atlantic, and the rules are really interesting to me as well. They used to be army style, and now they've got this kind of more skirmish style game. The activation scheme has this sort of weird secrecy to it, where like you get a card and you don't know if you're going to get to activate 3, 4, or 5 models per turn, but your opponent does. It's really kind of interesting, and I'm pretty excited. Then there's Swill, a new skirmish game in the world of Turnip 28 from the man himself, Turnip Max. Initially, it seemed like a game where you had a tank which you would kit bash out of whatever, and a small group of 5 or 6 figures. You would fight in a hole against other groups underneath the world of Turnip 28. Now, I haven't been paying a close attention lately as I've been traveling a lot and working on our new game and all that kind of stuff. But now it seems like it's a game that's pretty much about kind of odd fish people fighting against each other. And I'm fine with that too, to be honest. I love fishmen, I suspect that it'll probably be a free game, like Turnip 28. The last mention here is the fantasy skirmish game Warrow, which is from Corvus Belli, makers of the sci-fi game Infinity. This is the less indie of these last 3, I would say. Warrow is going to be a skirmish fantasy rule set, from what I understand, with a full line of miniatures, which I think are going to be done in a form of plastic instead of metal, that CO-cast stuff that you keep hearing about, right? As the Infinity models are all still done in metal. The latest news is that the initial release for Warrow is going to be at Gen Con 2024 in this upcoming early August, so we don't have that much longer to wait. If you want to find out more about Warrow, again, link down in the description below. So that's my list of new wargaming skirmish games with potential. Potential to get me to buy them, except for the ones that I guess I've already purchased, right? And potential to get me to play. I hope that this has introduced you to something that you haven't heard of before, and that you'll at least give them a look. Again, links down in the description below. What new skirmish games are you interested in? Cool indie stuff, or even big well-known games? Something's coming out soon, right? Let me know down in the comments below. If you liked this video, please hit the like button. It kind of lets me know what kinds of videos to do, because you liked them or maybe you didn't, and it also helps YouTube to sort of spread the word. If you'd like to see more videos like this every single Friday, click the subscribe button, and thanks for watching.